We are in the midst right now of transitioning to an architecture of, I'd say, a one world government control grid. Everybody needs to lean in. There is no way you can fight it.
What I can't get my head around is, who are the winners and losers?
Politics is gone. Like, if you're wasting time on politics, I think you're wasting vital energy. You need to build for yourself, and it starts with you and your family. And your community. The whole monopoly board is being thrown up by, I believe, an agenda to build a police and surveillance state of programmable money, social credit scores, and artificial intelligence.
Have I talked to you about the golden pill?
No.
You've had every pill, you know how it works, you know how the system works, and you have a choice of blue pill, but you don't want to do it. You've understood through the red pill. You've had your depressing black pill moment. You've had your white pill. Now it's like the golden pill is like, this is reality, and I'm going to build my world in it.
So that's it. There is a global agenda to take us to the most centralized version of control grid that the world will ever see. And even if it happens, which I believe it will, even if it happens, it doesn't matter if you're sovereign.
Yeah, so the algorithms control a lot of this game, what you're doing. And actually, in some ways, I don't like it because you become a slave to the algorithm. I've been talking to other podcast hosts, and you don't really have a choice. Well, you do. You have a choice of not playing the algorithm, and your show, you can make an amazing show and it can bomb. You and I could have a brilliant 2 hour conversation. If we haven't hit some massive topics in the first 10 minutes, it just bombs.
Yeah.
And so if you really want to juice the algorithm, you've got to hit them in 30 seconds with a big hit. You've got to keep them engaged for the first kind of like minute of, that's why they all do trailers, you know, that first minute of the show, they show you all the big bits. So you go, oh, I want to watch that. And then you've got to like try and keep people on average above 20 minutes. And you've got to bait them in with a title. Now, if you're Joe Rogan, you don't need to do this. You've established, everyone loves you, you do 1 million on Spotify every episode, but most other people have to play this game. And I've even noticed shows I really like are just not performing like they used to because they're getting beat by other people playing the game.
Yeah. This is also part of the scary mechanism for control, right? So we call it freedom of speech, but not freedom of reach. I think that was the new. So we had the censorship model where there seemed like there was a moment when everything was, okay, if you step too far out of the line, then we'll just cancel you. But there was a very decisive moment, I think, when it transitioned to freedom of speech, but not freedom of reach. And I think it coincided with the release of AI and us building our social credit score. So I think we hit a moment where they said, okay, the cat's out of the bag. We want you talking about everything, but we want you telling your truth so that we can profile you. Now, we won't give you reach. We'll only boost what we want to boost. And I think also there is putting people into the most radical version of themselves.
Yeah.
By continually feeding them like a narrative. So they figure out what your narrative is. And then they keep feeding you into that narrative. And I think it radicalizes you more and more and more into your worldview.
But you say they.
The algorithms.
So like there's the conspiratorial side, that there's some control over the algorithms to move public perception on issues or to move public perception or change the way you think and behave. But there is also the revenue side of algorithms, where everybody who has an algorithm has a company that generates money from advertising or whatever, and they play on the weaknesses of the mind, the inner perversions, the inner perverse curiosity. It's like there's a period. I think most blokes go through a period of time where they're watching people getting their heads cut off or shot or murdered on various social media channels, and then that's all it feeds you is people getting killed, and then you're like, I can't fucking watch this shit anymore. And so I think, is it a conspiracy, or is it just the algorithms understand us as humans?
It can be both. So, there is what is the primary goal? The primary goal is that you're in a doom loop, right? You never leave the device. And so they need to maximize for how do I get you on this device for as long as possible. And you know, the more time you spend on that device, the more they can build your profile. Then it's understanding the data and addictive nature to keep you locked in. But then there's the business model, and the business model is advertising. And so advertisers can pay to change a game. And that could come from anywhere. That could come from either a business agenda. It could come from political. It could come from intelligence. And so you could, you know, they are consistent, but there are certain levels, like during the cancellation culture, you know, I think there was a intelligent, we need to cancel people in order to convert them into assets, ruin their life, you know, sue them, put them in some kind of compromised network, and then try and bring them back as an asset. And I think that's what the cancel culture was for everyone that came back from the cancellation.
That was Broad Epstein.
Yeah, I mean, you know, infamously Alex Jones, you can see him like pre and post cancellation. And you can also, you know, you can see that there is a compromised network, and once you get to a certain stage, you are an asset. And if you don't comply with, if they can't weaponize you effectively and utilize you, then they can do something. They can do the cancel operation in order to bring you back in. And then you know that there is bounded escalation in your narrative, just like allowing people to monetize on X. People learn behaviors, right? They learn the sensationalist headline that's kind of not quite true, but in line with what gets a lot of traffic and a lot of comments and riles people up. You can boost those people and boost their income. And so you're training people into the speech you want them to have. And you just pick up these assets. And if they comply more and more, then you can just build these communities.
Well, what is the hierarchy of the structure that you think makes that happen?
Well, I think media is just about power. It's not like a money business model. Media's captured in the sense that most of them are public companies. So they start at, you know, everyone starts out as like a decentralized group of trying to spread a message, or trying to build a business for yourself. It depends which way you are. So if like the founder of a podcast is building it as a business, then immediately you're into okay, I've got this amount of money, now I need to get sponsorship. Sponsorship means that there's a certain message where I can't go down, you know, like because it's bad for business. Then you have, you know, the monetization algorithms that's teaching you the behavior and the types of things you should be talking about. And then I think you get to a level of you're bigger than traditional media, you know, the top podcasts.
Did YouTube let us monetize Simon?
Yeah, it did.
Yeah, we're allowed to monetize you.
Okay, so there's a narrative that's acceptable there, or there's just a load of money to be made.
Well, we're not big enough.
I think the CPM was way down on that episode.
Yeah, yeah. It's really interesting because there is like there's a part of me, Simon, who goes, do you know what? Fuck YouTube, fuck Spotify. I'll just build a subscription-only podcast, and whoever wants to pay will pay to do it. There's that Patreon video the guy who founded Patreon did called 1,000 True Fans. Have you ever seen it?
No.
It's brilliant. He said most creative people don't realize you need 1,000 true fans. Yeah, if you're a guitarist, you know, you can write songs and release a record every, you know, a single every couple of months. Those 1,000 true fans will buy everything you do. They'll buy your t-shirt, whatever. If you've got 1,000 true fans who'll spend £100 a year with you, £100,000, you can be a creative. But a lot of people are thinking wide and broad and they want to play at Wembley Stadium, and actually you need 1,000 true fans. But then there's the flip side. If you make it subscription only, well, you as a guest, I mean, maybe not you, somebody else is going to go, well, I was coming on when you were reaching 500,000 people because it was good for me. Now you're reaching a few thousand subscribers. I don't care. And then there's your whole ego. It's like, well, I want my show to be successful.
Yeah.
There's a big balance to be played.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is how we win, by the way. This is like, there's a lot of doomerism. There's a lot of understanding how the world really works. There's a lot of black pilling at the moment. But there's something about scale that doesn't work. There's something about a big company, a big country, where something, a structure of protectionism and capture just hits a certain point. And I found this with all my investments as well. Every single company I invested in like the Bitcoin space, particularly, it started that way. It started with the original ethos of trying to get people decentralized money that no one could control. But then they get in the regulatory capture. So they set up a company, and then there's a board, and then that board needs to apply for a license, and then it needs to maintain a banking relationship, and then it needs venture capital funding, and then it needs, if it succeeds, to be a public company, and then it's just a full-blown subordinate of what I call the financial industrial complex at that stage. Then they load you up with debt. You've got equity and voting rights. Then they have the ability to put a board seat on your company, and those are the captured vehicles. Now, what they don't want, there's like a couple of people I found, or a couple of categories to simplify this down. You've got people that have no real money, are like deep in debt. They're kind of like the product of the system. They're paying their interest, they're paying their rent, they're paying their mortgage, they're paying their credit card, and they're finding their situation getting worse and worse and worse, and they're complaining. Like, they're able to talk about it. They're shouting like as loud as they can, but no one really cares. You could sit here and talk about, oh, we got to do something about Epstein, the victims of Epstein. It does nothing, right? It just carries on. Then there's real power. Let's say, let's get at the corporate level, someone like Elon Musk about to do a $2 trillion IPO for SpaceX. These people are captured within a bounded compromise layers. Like, you don't get access to the capital. We can destroy your share price. You will lose all your advertising. APAC will come at you, or military lobby will come at you, or whatever it may be. Will destroy your business. So there's all those like levers. And most people there, like, it's very rare to get a wild card there. Most people, they're captured by the system, even though there may not be like a massively, blackmail big operation happening there. But they're just preserving their own interests. And their own interests are designed to keep you where you don't talk out against the system. And this is kind of why I got into Bitcoin, because Bitcoin created all these really rich people that came from that ideology. And Wall Street went about capturing them all one by one. And all the companies I invested in, they all got captured. But the ones that ended up with a company with no VC funding, just like Bitcoin on their balance sheet, the ones that got their own Bitcoin in self-custody, and they got rich, and they got influence, and maybe they started podcasts and various other things. That's the category that the system doesn't like, which is rich, powerful, influential, ability to even create a movement with 1,000 true fans that can all pay for themselves and pay without financial guardrails and the ability to be cancelled. And then it ends up, you're kind of just you're working for YouTube at that stage. So you always, there's a spectrum of subordination in everything. And you're trying to get further and further into being sovereign, a sovereign company, a sovereign country, a sovereign individual. But there's always something you're bounded by. But when you are like rich, wealthy, not subordinate to all of those layers, you don't have a mortgage, you're in what I call a sovereign zone, and that sovereign zone is what the system doesn't like. They really don't want those people because you're in a position to actually influence change, and they don't have all the layers of control on you. And so that's rare. You don't find many of those because they're always stuck in a business that drives them in a different direction that makes them comply.
How do we get more of them?
Well, that was, I think, the Bitcoin movement. I think it is about, this is why I always thought that crypto was a psyop, because it took a long-term economically sound philosophy of own more Bitcoin each month and do that for 10 years. And it replaced it with try and outperform Bitcoin, launch this is your path to wealth, create your own version, or just trade and gamble and leverage and all that stuff. And that psyoped a lot of people. And so you got to get a people with a longer term plan, an understanding of the rules, and then working towards being that sovereign individual. And you kind of got two ways of going about it, I think. You either accept this is the system and I understand the rules, right? I need to invest in AI companies on the stock market, and I know I'm building or I'm investing in. My money is, overtly building the police and surveillance state. And I need to utilize AI to be as productive as possible, because opting out of it just means you're not going to make any difference or make any change. So you either go full into the system, understand the rules of the system, and then become that person. And, because everyone else is just stuck down here. You're not getting any of the upside. You're not getting the shares. You're not getting anything. You don't have a business. You're just a loud voice with no influence. And all of them need to have like a long-term plan, but everything's driving people into this get rich quick. I need to do it quickly. I've only got a few years left. And so how do we drive that? I think in economics, we called it time preference. And then how do you drive that time preference behavior? Keep people on track where they don't become subordinate, and then have the kahunas to actually speak out against the system when it may punish you and make you lose all your wealth that's connected to the system, but keep your wealth that they can't capture. And so you either change the system from within the system by understanding the rules, or you generate sovereign wealth outside the system and become that wealthy person that can actually just build its wealth outside the system, speak against the system.
Well, what's at stake here? Like, somebody hasn't listened to our last two shows.
Yeah.
What are we talking about here? What's at stake here right now?
Well, we are in the midst right now of transitioning to a voluntary opt-in just due to the way the game has been set up, an architecture.
Architecture of what?
An architecture of, I'd say, a one world government control grid, where we have no choice but to lean into artificial intelligence. We have no choice but to lean into robotics for like businesses in the real world that are actually building things, because you'll get crushed. And from the individual investor that's allocating their money, no choice but to invest it, because you'll be inflated away into non-existence.
But hold on, isn't that just capitalism? Like, isn't that just what happened with the internet?
What do you mean, what happened?
So when we had the internet revolution, the digital revolution that came with that, companies who didn't adopt it got destroyed. We lost Blockbuster, we lost magazines and newspapers. You had to become part of that or you were wiped out.
Yeah.
Aren't we just doing the same again with AI?
I think so. However, what comes on the other side of AI? And I think this is a different game. I think structurally, artificial intelligence, firstly, it wipes out the ability to monetize in many cases. So everything's moving towards free, which is like a deflationary concept or a disinflationary concept. And quite clearly, the evidence is showing that people are, the tech companies right now are investing in data centers to replace humans. So we are moving towards something that's going to take away jobs, but not in a similar way to the previous disruptions that anyone that's a billionaire invested in AI will tell you right now. That's trying to tell you that we're moving to universal high income, and that we're moving to, they'll give the examples of the internet and the computer and how it created new businesses and new jobs. I don't think that's what's happening in this case.
This show is brought to you by my lead sponsor, Iron, the AI cloud for the next big thing. Iron builds and operates next-generation data centers and delivers cutting-edge GPU infrastructure, all powered by renewable energy. Now, if you need access to scalable GPU clusters or are simply curious about who is powering the future of AI, check out iron.com to learn more, which is IREN.com. I've become really bullish on AI over the last couple of weeks at a personal level, because I've been going kind of like deep in Claude. I've been spending like 15 hours a day building stuff. Mm-hmm. And so I used to have an agency here in London where we would build websites and applications. And we at the football club have a number of disparate systems. We have our merch system, and we sell merch in 3 places, and we have no stock management. We sell it online, we sell it at the club and at the coffee shop. We have our financial system, which is Xero. We have players that we manage and their contracts. We have staff that we manage. We have communications. In 9 days, I integrated this all into one intranet. Not only does it work, it looks beautiful, because I created an AI agent with the 15 years experience of designing applications at Apple. I built an architecture of a team. I've got a security agent. And so if I'd had my agency and you'd come to me with that brief, I'd said, yes, about a year. We'd probably get the first module out in 3 to 6 months. Cost you £1 million, and I'd have a team of 12 people working on it. One guy on his own. I can't code for shit. Yet it's teaching me how to set up Vercel, teaching me how to set up GitHub, teaching me how to set up Supperbase. I'm running the SQL queries. Yeah, and God knows what it's doing in the background. But the ability to do that in 9 days is incredible. And then I wanted to redesign our website, and we use Squarespace. Problem with Squarespace, you're limited to the templates. And so complex things like how I want to display fixtures and results for the football team is difficult. I designed the website first, and I said, can you create me a CMS? And basically in the last 3 days, I've recreated Squarespace. And when I say that, obviously it's not as good as Squarespace. I've been going 20 years, but it's not far off it, and it's probably better than some other CMSs. And I had this kind of realization. This is my bullish side of AI, where I was like, yes, there's these few companies centralizing the technology. I do have a fear about that. But the technology is decentralizing the power of tech to small businesses. And actually what it's doing is crushing big businesses. There's this software apocalypse they're talking about, the SaaS apocalypse. And I see it, because you can now build custom applications in days that run specifically how your business runs. And so any small business now, understanding Claude, can go and build any application they wanted that they couldn't have access to before because they weren't big enough. And so I'm seeing this kind of like decentralization of technology and the power of technology. And hopefully that will empower smaller businesses. I might be on my own here.
I don't think you are in Europe, but that's exactly how everyone needs to lean in for the next few years, because this is happening.
Yes.
Like there is, like, if you want to waste an incredible amount of time, go and burn data centers and fight against this. And unless you can go off the grids and you're genuinely happy in that life, and you've figured out your income, you figured out your assets, and you just want to escape, then fine. But virtually no one's in that position. But for everyone else, you got no, and this is the power of the psyop, as it were. Everybody needs to lean in. There is no way you can fight it. You need to get excited about it. You need to utilize it, and you need to build everything you possibly can. And you need to help everyone make that transition, which is the arbitrage that's happening right now. There's an arbitrage between someone that's leaned in versus someone that hasn't figured out that they need to lean in. But maybe they know that they need to lean in and they just want someone to help them.
Yeah.
And so that is a massive opportunity. Like every single business in the world needs to make that transition.
Yeah, and I think this is empowering though for the small businesses, but I think it's going to be disempowering for some of the big businesses. I think the way, for example, I don't know, Blockbuster got destroyed by Netflix. Yeah, Blockbuster didn't see it coming, and I think there's like one Blockbuster left or something now. They just refuse to embrace it. I think that's going to happen to a lot of massive software companies because people will not need the software because you can just write your own version. And it's always a pain with software. You have to shoe your business into their software. And maybe if you've got loads of money, you can get some customization. But really, you're always trying to adapt. And you've got all these disparate applications that do different things. I've just done it myself. I've integrated it all into our business workflow, and it's just going to change the way we work. Like it's blown my mind. We've created one for the podcast. So one of the problems we have with the podcast is the flow from researching a guest to booking the guest to recording it to editing it to publishing it. It is just a bunch of stuff in my head, Connor's head, the Chelsea's head, Kurt's head. In one day, I built an application to manage that. And we have the to-do list of every show broken down by person. It uses that Kanban design, so it just moves things across. And there are steps within there where AI saves us time. We're going to have less mistakes. We're going to be more powerful. We're going to make better shows. I built it in a day. Again, you come to me as when I've got my company and explain that system. I'm like, that's 3 to 4 months. That's probably 100 grand.
Yeah.
It's just so empowering. What I can't get my head around is, who are the winners and losers? There's going to be a lot of losers. It's going to be a lot of losers. If you are in a job and your job is you go and sit at a desk and you've got a number of applications and you're interpreting data in one and then moving it into another, your job's going. You're done. You're cooked. And if you're at any kind of consultancy level where there's lots of you and you're not an AI native, you're going to be replaced by the AI native who can manage a group of agents who do. I've seen it now. I get it. I mean, even to the point where I created a. So one of the things I find with Claude that was difficult, it forgets things that you've told it, and just goes rogue. So I created like a spine, an MD file of the important things it needs to remember. And then I created skills for all the different skills that would be in a web application business. So I had a front-end developer, back-end developer, designer, project manager, systems architect, security. I sent them all into a meeting yesterday. I was like, right, go into a meeting together. I mean, I'm just saying do that. I don't know what it does. But go into a meeting together, review the system and tell us what's not been done from your perspective, discuss it with the other agents, come back with the plan. And Claude says, we're all off into a meeting now. And I sit there for a few minutes. Right, we're out of the meeting. It gave me a full document on everything that needs to be done. I gave that to the project manager to go and deliver. Simon, it's mind-blowing, but yeah. I think it's going to be volatile and a lot of people are going to be screwed.
Yeah, so I think you're an example of somebody, like I think we're in a similar position. So I had a business. We were hiring people. At some stage, we decided, do I want to be in a business around this incredibly disruptive time? Or do we just want to invest and deploy capital? That was like a decision we had to make leading up to this. Then we decided, all right, we'll spin out part of our business, and we sold part of our business to Coinbase. Then we decided to keep the assets. And then the next decision was, okay, we need to have a hiring freeze. So we stopped hiring everybody. And we told everyone within our small team at this time, because the big team went somewhere else, but we were in a small team. So we kind of decentralized it down a bit, and part of our business consolidated into a bigger group. And then we were, okay, you're not going to lose your job, whatever happens, right? We had our core people that have been through us for a decade. You're not losing your job, whatever happens, but disrupt yourself.
Yes.
And we had that level of trust where we were like, look, we've got this assets, nothing's changing, we're making this amount of revenue. Just play with this technology and disrupt yourself, and we'll keep you on no matter what. Like, you'll be managing all of your agents and all of your things. And so a small team, we were able to do that, which is quite interesting in itself. And then what happened after that? Coinbase made an announcement saying that we're laying off X% of our team.
17%, wasn't it?
something like that, like 15% or something like that. We're moving to a flat hierarchy, and we're building for AI first, and we're changing everything we do. And so, you've got a big business that needs to make that shift. Now, that public company, say Coinbase, is going to have a massive boost to productivity. They're going to lay off a bunch of people. There's an interesting one right now because of the business model of AI as well. Like there's something I looked at recently where because of the way that the token model, where the more you're using it, the more you pay in tokens, people calculated that it cost us more on the AI than it cost on the staff. So our cost actually increased.
I mean, that's not for me.
Yeah.
It's certainly not. I mean, I think I hit my first token limit with Claude the other day, and it said it was about 6 PM, and I've become one of these AI vampires whereby, like, I don't even, like, truthfully, I don't even want to be talking to you now. I want to be sat there coding.
Yeah.
Everything I'm doing, I'm like, because I want to finish my projects, right? I wake up in the middle of the night and it's 2 AM. I go downstairs, get a water, and just go and see what the jobs my agents have finished and set them off on the next one.
Yeah.
Like, I'm continuous. But anyway, one evening at 6 o'clock, he said, "You've hit your token limit. It resets at 8 AM." I was like, "What the fuck is this?
Yeah.
What do you mean?" And then I bought some additional tokens, and they wouldn't work straight away. And honestly, I was like, that was actually a warning signal to me, in that these companies can turn you off.
Yes.
And that is something that does worry me. And I do want to know what the decentralized version of this is, that you cannot be turned off. And maybe it can't. And maybe I'm a sucker. And maybe I'm building part of the matrix and we're all fucked.
Yeah. Well, ironically, the answer in that is in China.
Oh, God.
Because China's open sourcing it. And so America right now, we're certainly in an AI bubble in terms of valuations of the AI companies. Like 50% of the S&P is the Magnificent 7 companies. And we're about to add 3 more. So it'd be the Magnificent 10. We'll add SpaceX, OpenAI, and Anthropic.
Okay.
So we've got 10 companies that are eating the S&P. And the only companies that are doing well right now have something in the ecosystem of the data center build out that's supporting them.
Didn't Anthropic just announce they just hit profitable EBIT for the first time, rolling profitable EBIT, 100 billion potentially rolling revenue? I mean, that's pretty quick to get to 100 billion revenue.
They are. And if you look at the NVIDIA numbers, we've got revenue, like margins, unbelievable margins right now. I think they just, they also reported that they're doing a share buyback. I think $85 billion share buyback.
Who is?
NVIDIA.
Okay.
So that attracts that attracts all the growth tech investors. Then they also said that we're increasing our dividend from 1 cent to 25 cents.
Wow.
So now they're bringing in all the income investors, all the old Warren Buffett type of Coca-Colas and banking, those type of dividend income investors. So they got the income investors, they got the growth investors. They're propping up the private credit market. The private credit that's done okay is when it was in the AI data centers. That's the backbone. That all goes back into banking. We've got large venture capitalists like SoftBank. They've sold everything. And they've done a highly leveraged trade, $60 billion leveraged trade, connects to the Bank of Japan carry trade in order to purchase OpenAI shares pre-IPO. So we've set up this, everything's on AI, definitely very reminiscent of the 2000 .com era. We've set up a game like that financially. And then structurally on the other side of this, we know that China is open sourcing everything.
I want to get into that, but I just want to hit on that point.
Yeah.
I think there's something very different from the bubble. So I got into the internet during the bubble. I was a student. I learned to code HTML on my lap. I was working in a Weatherspoons pub, getting paid £2.70 an hour. I put my name on a freelancers forum. I got a phone call 3 days later from eCountries.com, a .com thing. Phoned me up and they offered me £1,000 a week to go and work for them. I quit uni pretty much that day. I was like, oh, I'm done. But I worked through that period and we had so many issues with speed of the websites and them trying to do more than people were ready for as capable. And it came to, I think the internet came too soon for internet speeds.
Mm.
And it, and there was all that investment and nobody was making any money. Boo.com and what was it, pets.com all failed. I think there's a big difference here in that the internet is ready for AI and the revenues are there and they are growing. I mean, I think Anthropic said they're making 80% on tokens, 80% profit on tokens.
Yeah.
And so I think there is a difference in these business models can work. There's a huge amount of investment and there's surely a winner takes most on the super intelligence, but I do actually, I'm not worried about their business models.
Yeah, it's not the business model. It's what the investment banks are doing. It's what Goldman's is doing.
Go on.
So they're valuing these companies on astronomical growth on the current revenue model, and they're selling approximately 5 years forward revenue at this valuation. And so these valuations are, off the scale, and they require a few things.
Yeah, but hold on. Isn't that just the game? I remember, wasn't it like Snapchat has never really made any money, but all the banks got rich on the IPO? Isn't that always been the game? Is that there's no money left for retail by the time it IPOs?
Yeah. I mean, well, that was what was moved towards. It used to be a game where you would try and have retail make some money.
Yeah, no, retail. We'd dump on retail.
But now it's like you got venture capital, you got private equity, then you got the private credit, then you've got the Gulf sovereign, all the sovereign wealth funds, and then you've got the IPO. So the IPO is like the final game. Then you sell it 5-year revenue forward. I mean, if you're a long-term investor, it's like, the right place to allocate, which is why we ended up giving all our power to BlackRock, because you just end up buying the S&P instead.
Yeah.
And now they've changed the game where if you are valued at $1 trillion plus on day one, you get included in the index. So now,
SpaceX.
So now SpaceX is in, and I'm not sure if Anthropic and OpenAI are in, but there's probably something to learn there as we learn from it. But that puts you right in the index because the stock market relies upon 3 things now. Money printing. If the money printer stops, the game stops. The passive index funds, which means BlackRock can determine who's in and who's out. The Fed can determine whether we print or not, when we rug pull, when we don't rug pull. And then finally, media, which is, what we were talking about earlier, like this, a narrative that gets all this investment, which right now we are leading up to. China's about to, we're going to lose the AI arms race. If we don't get this investment, we don't do this IPO, we don't do it at these valuations.
Print a bunch more cash.
Yeah, print a bunch more cash. And you need something to justify the money printing, whether it's a 7 or 5 trillion, 10 trillion, whatever we're moving to next. You need to justify it. So you need a big narrative. And one of those narratives is, if you look at what's happening on the China side, DeepSeek was the first software company to receive funding from the infrastructure play of AI and technology that China's fund, the big fund. And it's never invested in software, but this is the first time it did because it was integrated into Huawei's structure. And it can do 90% of 90%, maybe 1 year behind is kind of what people are saying of what's being released in America, but like at 1/10 of the cost.
Why is it able to do that? Is it just making different trade-offs?
Just different trade-offs, just different structures.
What's China up to here? What do you think?
Well, this, if we get into it, this goes into the one world government and what happened with the recent Xi Jinping and Trump meeting. There's a coordinated agenda there, I think, in terms of we're told that it's China versus the private companies in America. But clearly, those magnificent 7 companies all build their shit in China. So the whole thing of the AI arms race is real, but at a higher level, I think there's a game that's being played. And I think that transitions us to this one world technocratic government agenda.
Are you a conspiracy theorist, Simon?
Well, I follow money, and if the conspiracy theory matches the money, then I go down it.
They keep coming true, man.
Yeah.
Does a one world government stop a world war?
I think it does actually. Yes.
Yeah.
World War III, I always said this, I think I said it in the previous program. World War III is an absolute joke. It's a joke of a narrative, but it's what the media is pushing, and it's what the algorithm's trying to make you think will happen. Because within one phone call, if it was real, within one phone call, the entire US military industrial complex cannot produce a weapon without China. The entire US military industrial complex needs the supply chain of China, as does the entire US tech sector. So World War III is not possible. So why are we continually being told that we're going to World War III? Well, to me, there has to be a bigger agenda.
Well, I mean, they already have weapon stockpiles. They already have nuclear weapons. They can fire them. You're talking about
I'm taking nuke out of the equation. Like, that's end of world shit.
Yeah, but I mean, that to me is the only World War III. Everything else is proxy wars in little shitty nations that we don't care about, where we're happy to just drop bombs on innocent people.
Yeah. And so, that's how it gets. But when we get back to the AI stuff, so DeepSeek raised at about 45 billion valuation, and we're looking at everything else in the under $1 trillion or up to 2 trillion with SpaceX. The entire economy of US growth last year, if you took out the data center build, was nothing. Like, it was a useless economy. We also know that there is a currency war. That's certainly one of the most interesting things that are happening right now as an alternative to World War III, like an actual physical war, I think. But that's always been, every single war, there was always a currency war before the war.
Mm-hmm.
That's always been the number one tool. We know that we're moving down this whole programmable money, programmable securities, programmable everything. And that's kind of where we are right now in the world, I'd say.
Where do you see us in 5 years? What does the world look like in 5 years? Like, is this something all this change that's happening, is it going to happen fast?
I think it is happening fast, yeah. So I think the future of America is all the growth is coming from the AI and the data centers. That's where it is right now. The S&P, like, tech is eating the S&P. There is a moment when the data centers are built. Then what happens?
We don't need any more.
Yeah. Well, there's not enough energy in the world to power all this AI. So either what we're doing is unsustainable, or there's a new model, and the new model eliminates everything that everyone's investing right now. China's already got it. They've got the whole solar panel, renewable energy, electric vehicles, batteries, rare earth minerals, like that whole supply chain, which is why Tesla needs China to make Teslas. That whole supply chain is there. But what is the stock market, which is now pretty much dependent upon the success of these IPOs that are about to happen. If they're a sell the rumor, buy the rumor, sell the news event, and there was a real structural correction after these IPOs, and it was a rug pull, and what SoftBank is doing, it leads to a dump.
What do you think?
I'm really split between it. This is why I think they're timing the opening of the Strait of Hormuz with the IPOs. So I think Trump wants to make sure that liquidity is there. And so it's kind of on, off, open, closed, open. I reckon they've already signed a memorandum of understanding. We're getting back and forth this weekend as we speak.
Ready for the...
they already signed it in May. Like, I think they've already signed it.
All ready for the midterms.
I don't think midterms matter that much.
I think psychologically they matter.
I think Trump knows that he's fulfilled his task. He's split the world into multipolarity.
He's done his job.
He's made a shit ton of money. He's effectively laid the foundation for killing everything that propped up the dollar. All of the deep state operations, all of the USAID, all of the data over to Palantir, Department of Government Efficiency, all of the reputation of America with Epstein files, everything that was covert before that propped up the dollar is now overt. And then you had the event that sets the new world order, which is if America can't open the Strait of Hormuz, then you have the Suez Canal moment of the British Empire. And it's obvious that that's what's happening right now. So right now, I think Trump needs a Hollywood movie of how he forced Iran into signing a deal. And I think Iran will agree to that in the negotiations. You get your Hollywood movie. Then we'll have this moment when everyone else in the world realizes Iran did it. Can we do that? Can we now sign with China? Can we now do the Belt and Road Initiative? And can we actually get rid of our IMF debt? Seems like there's a way now. It seems like there's a path. How do we do that? Well, we need to deconstruct all of the things that made sanctions possible. We need to deconstruct the SWIFT system for the rest of the world. We need to take away the layers that propped up the petrodollar, which is OPEC. People see it as...
Who just left OPEC? Didn't someone just leave OPEC?
UAE just left OPEC, and they got an FX swap line. And what that means in simple terms is the way the Eurodollar system works is that if you get access to the Federal Reserve FX swap lines, which is where you deposit your currency and they lend you dollars and the Fed creates those dollars, it's handing over the creation of dollars to an alternative central bank. And so that's an exclusive club. That was for the Bank of Japan, the European Central Bank, the Bank of England, the Bank of Canada, and the Swiss Central Bank. Now, an FX swap line was given to UAE. That means that UAE can now create dollars. And so if they want to, have the guarantee of the Federal Reserve System, but within UAE, and who are UAE? They're the center of circumventing sanctions globally. Iran does all of their trade through UAE, and we're meant to believe they're at war right now. But all of the sanction circumvention happens via UAE, via Hong Kong, via Singapore, and all of the gold to oil routes. And what else did UAE get? Well, so we've got an FX swap line, so it now can have a system that's guaranteed by the Federal Reserve, and that was framed as, UAE's in so much distress, they're about to die, and we bailed them out. They've got $250 billion in reserves and $2 trillion of US assets. And the average American is struggling with the cost of energy because of the closure of the Strait of Hormuz. Their bills are going through the roof, and they're meant to believe that they're bailing out UAE. What else did it get? So then it came out of OPEC. OPEC was the other half of the petrodollar. It was the agreement by the International Monetary Fund, the post-World War II Bretton Woods order, where you would take your dollars that you priced in oil, so you would sell your oil for dollars, and then you would reinvest them into US treasuries. But the bit that most people don't know is that then it sticks within the Federal Reserve System, so they can sanction them or wipe them away. That gives America its control. And then what you have to do with the yield on the treasuries, you have to reinvest it in US companies. And so your defense contract was you have to spend it into the US stock market. Then it comes back with US companies getting contracts, and they build a foreign base. And then they say, we'll protect the petrodollar.
So one of the biggest problems with the modern media is that most people don't realise they're consuming emotionally framed versions of reality rather than facts, where the news is being framed for whatever bullshit incentives are driving the publication, but many media companies don't just focus on facts and truth. So this week I started using Ground News to help navigate this. Now, Ground News is a pretty cool website and app that lets you compare how the same story is being covered across the political spectrum, seeing exactly how it is being framed. So let's take a look at this article here about Trump hosting mothers of military service members and victims of crimes committed by illegal immigrants at the White House. One headline says Trump hosts Mother's Day luncheon for Angel and Gold Star mothers, and the next says Trump comforts grieving mums with a rambling speech about self, And then there's another where Trump uses Mother's Day tribute to rant on Joe Biden and executing drug smugglers. It's the same event covered completely differently with completely different framing. And you know what? That's the value of ground news. You can compare headlines side by side. You can see the political bias rating of each publication, and you can check their factuality ratings. You can also use their blind spot feature to see stories that are being disproportionately pushed by one side of the media landscape while the other completely ignores it. So if you want a better way to stay informed, just head over to ground.news/PeterM or scan the QR code on the screen to get 40% off unlimited access to their Ground Advantage plan. It feels like things are breaking apart, but it actually sounds like they're consolidated.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So now, well, you've broken the petrodollar.
Yeah.
You know, the petrodollar no longer has that system. What else did UAE get? It just so happens that the Bank for International Settlements was creating a network of central bank digital currencies called mBridge. That mBridge project was transferred over to UAE. And UAE have a network of central bank digital currencies that connect Saudi Arabia, China, Thailand, and UAE and Hong Kong. Then we got an announcement from Hong Kong just the last few weeks that Hong Kong is now taking on the infrastructure of the gold clearing system for derivative products that used to be in London. And so now Hong Kong is starting to get the ability to issue these gold derivatives that aren't backed by physical gold, i.e. the same scam that happened in the West. And it's integrated into China's, the Shanghai gold market. And so there's another thing that's built up here. Oh, you know, you've got a network of CBDCs that plug into China's CBDC, all clearing via UAE. They've all got their system there. You've got the petrodollar that is now what happened 11 months prior to UAE leaving OPEC. They signed an energy pricing agreement with BRICS. And so now you've got this, and what is the end result of the closure of the Strait of Hormuz? Iran, who's the largest sovereign Bitcoin miner in the world, that mines Bitcoin at the cheapest rate in the world, backed by nuclear energy. We're meant to be negotiating nuclear weapons, when in the end, they're going to have, for the first time, a capitulation on their ability to have a nuclear civilian nuclear energy program. And then when you remove sanctions, which is what's being negotiated, what happens then? Well, you've got 2 to 4 million barrels of oil for an OPEC member because Iran is in OPEC. Now that's moving all over to BRICS. Who joined BRICS right prior, like a year prior to this? UAE, Iran, and Egypt. Saudi did a holdout and said, we'll be an observer. And then what did we get? We had October the 7th. Then the IMF bribed Egypt and said, we'll cancel your $18 billion debt if you ethnically cleanse the Palestinians. Egypt said no.
That's a big claim.
That's exactly what happened. This is like the plans were all released. The whole ethnic cleansing, the plan was to put all of the Palestinians in the Sinai Desert and then expand the war into Egypt.
Well, so I'm aware of that.
Yeah.
When you say ethnically cleanse,
That ethnically cleanse doesn't mean genocide.
Yeah, no, it
means
also
you take
means
the Palestinians and put them somewhere else.
Yeah.
Yeah, you move them, expel them,
Yeah.
Nakba, or whatever. So that was what they were meant to do. But then prior to that, what happened? China normalized between Iran and Saudi Arabia. You had all those trade agreements. UAE was doing all the trade flows for all the sanctions circumvention. You had all these gold markets. You had gold that was completely flowing out of the west and into the east. When you look at all these flows, you had Egypt that decided, they took GCC, they took Gulf country money, and they took China Belt and Road Initiative money, and they stopped taking IMF money, and then they didn't accept the ethnic cleansing. And then we had this whole tit for tat between UAE and Iran. We also had a tit for tat between UAE and Saudi Arabia, Good cop, bad cop, good cop, bad cop. And what did they all destroy? They destroyed the infrastructure of the American bases. And they destroyed energy infrastructure, very specifically and very targeted.
So do you see this all like Neo sees the Matrix? Do you just see it all?
I see, yes. I mean, to me, this is an alternative to World War III, which is that world leaders, recognizing that World War III can't happen, they negotiate better outcomes. And who is the world leader in the West? Well, I've already said in previous episodes, that's private corporate interest.
Yes.
That's military industrial complex, financial industrial complex, technical industrial complex. So when you go to a meeting between Xi Jinping and Trump, what happens? You get the executives of all the banks, the FIC, you get the executives of all the technology companies, the TIC, and they sit down for a check-in report with Xi Jinping and the Chinese Communist Party on how they're splitting up the world and how these new energy routes are moving us to this multipolar world while they build out an AI center with a few rug pulls built in. And this is what I'm trying to say. The rug pulls that are built into this, how was the Belt and Road Initiative funded? It was funded by selling US treasuries. So they went from China's position went 1.4 trillion down to 650 billion now. All of that was invested in the countries that built all the alternative routes, all the train routes, the port routes, the shipping routes, all the alternative, was all built out. And so you can see that everything's been split up. And then we get a very interesting sequence of events. Nord Stream pipeline's blown up. That subordinates Europe. Europe and Germany, forces them into LNG contracts. Renewable energy. What's renewable energy? It's all powered by electricity. So Europe, doubles down into its renewable energy. We get Nord Stream pipeline. We get Ukraine war, Russia war. What happens with Venezuela? You could see before Venezuela, the Iran assets were being moved. The Russian assets were being moved. China was building up all of its oil reserves. And it was allowed to happen. We also had the same happen in Syria. Iran allowed it to happen. Russia allowed it to happen. China allowed to have it happen.
Okay, I've got a question. So what's happening with Cuba? What's that part of it?
Well, the Western Hemisphere is MIC, FIC, and TIC owned.
Yeah.
And so an energy crisis is needed. So you choke off all of its oil supply with Venezuela. You then do a beta test for crimes against humanity and people not being able to go to hospitals, people not being able to travel. If you want energy in Cuba, you have to download an app and it will give you your allocation. You probably have your carbon credit score, and you destroy the currency and you agree with Russia and China. Is this MIC, FIC, and TIC's part of the world? They'll say, well, I want Ukraine. I want Taiwan. They split the world up. They agree what's going to happen.
China's getting Taiwan.
Definitely China's getting Taiwan, which is why, they're building the infrastructure for chip independence. So you get an investment in Intel. You get Biden that signed the CHIPS agreement. So you invest $50 billion in chip infrastructure and independence. This is multi-government. You can see it from Trump to Biden to Trump. They're like,
don't take Taiwan yet. Let's build out our fabs.
China's getting close to chip independent, and America's going to be building their chip independence, and then Taiwan's just not that important.
What happened to Thomas Massey? Is that a side gig?
Thomas Massey, so he was taken down by the Israeli lobby.
Yeah, definitely.
There is a faction of power that is still the old neocons, the radical Zionists in Israel, and even factions of the IRGC that create the strategic tension that justifies all the war in the Middle East. That circle, neocons in America, the funding of resistance that justifies war, and Israel always pretending that they're about to be taken out and you need to protect the Jews. So they build an army, they get population growth, and they expand and justify wars. destabilize. That faction is, I would say, the power faction aligned with the military-industrial complex, which is more nationalistic. That's like the boomers that remember the dollar's old day. The financial industrial complex is more